Sometimes you read something and you just know there's more to it, more layers, deeper connections, maybe even a hint of something really groundbreaking. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that kind of concept. It's an advanced type of AI called Reflective Sophimatic AI. And our mission, really, is to unpack the core ideas behind this next generation AI. We're drawing from excerpts from Reflective Sophimatic AI, an ethical and temporal dialogue.
Hmm.
We really want to get our heads around how this system tries to be more ethical, more self-aware, maybe even more human-like in the way it reasons.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is that we're looking at AI that doesn't just, process information and actually reflects on it. So it's thinking about not just what's happening right now, but also what happened before, and crucially, what might happen next. This idea of time, of temporality, that's really key. It's a major difference.
Okay, so let's dig into that core idea then, this temporality. You mentioned traditional AI is often kind of stuck reacting to the present. How does this reflective Sophimatic AI break out of that? How does it manage past, present, and future?
Well, it's fundamentally built around the idea that any governing system, really, whether it's people or AI, has to constantly manage time. There's this systems model by Barbahan that talks about this. It suggests true reflection means always adapting, adapting to the flow, even the breaks, and the information coming at you. It has to be dynamic. And what really makes it different is how it sees decision making. It treats it as deeply time dependent. It uses these four temporal decision layers. So we're talking planning for what's ahead, prevention, learning from the past, resilience for dealing with things now, and even experimentation, trying things out for the unknown. So think about it, an AI that really has memory and foresight. These layers let it weigh its actions based on, say, a user's past, their present situation, and their likely future, which means it can genuinely learn from mistakes and anticipate ethical problems or what a user might need down the line. It's learning all the time.
That feels like a huge step. So not just looking back, but projecting forward too. It learns continuously. And I saw something in the notes about accelerated presence. That sounds intriguing. How does that work? And the adjustable time horizons.
Right, exactly. Think about an ER doctor. They have to act now. That's the accelerated present, right? Immediate decisions. But they still have to consider the patient's long-term health. This AI can kind of do both. It can shift smoothly between those urgent short-term priorities, like in an emergency, but still keep sight of the long-term goals, maybe for policy evaluation or something. Those adjustable horizons just mean it can slide between thinking really short-term and really long-term very naturally. Super valuable. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, like how it handles knowledge, well, temporality changes everything there too. Instead of just, tacking new facts onto some static database, it maintains this dynamic, evolving story over time through all its interactions. It completely recontextualizes what it knows. So the explanations it gives you are much richer, clearer, because they're sensitive to when things happened. And it helps the system see connections between bits of information that might seem fragmented otherwise, understanding the temporal links.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The idea that reflective Socmatic AI can actually state its own intentions, not just internally, but to us, outside agents. I mean, imagine an AI telling you why it made a certain suggestion.
Exactly. It can explain its reasoning during its own reflection process. This draws on work by Jaha and Rushby about moving beyond just scores, numerical rewards, towards logical intention. So it can align with what you want, but it also holds on to its own internal logic, its own goals.
Which sounds like it could lead to real collaboration, or maybe even constructive disagreement, because you understand where it's coming from.
But spot on. And the core idea isn't just about maximizing some number. The system is designed to figure out the logical rewards, the intent behind the goals. It's less about chasing points and more about understanding the why. And this helps create a shared understanding of goals between the AI and the user. You can actually question the AI's goals or its intent within a specific context and refine them together.
That's crucial.
It is. It helps align with human ethics, definitely, but it also lets the system adjust its own goals if, the situation really changes and priorities need to shift.
Okay, explaining intent is one thing, but how does it even form those intentions and adjust them? How does it know what it should be aiming for?
That leads us to self-correction, and this involves something called phenomenological self-reference.
That sounds complex.
It does, but the basic idea is introspection. The AI can monitor its own thinking, how it's interpreting information, how it's forming its views. So if it makes an assumption, it can catch itself. It can ask, hang on, is this the right way to look at this right now? This actually addresses a criticism from Morioka that AI often can't judge if its own interpretation is relevant. So these self-checking abilities mean it spots flaws. It doesn't just blindly accept information. Think of it this way. Say you tell an AI something that contradicts what it thought before. A normal AI might just update, maybe forget its old view. But this AI would actually consider its own previous interpretation in light of the new info. It reevaluates.
Ah, so it avoids being overconfident.
Exactly. It prevents overconfidence, prevents jumping to conclusions. Instead of just assuming something's relevant, which is a classic AI issue, the frame problem, the system actually models relevancy,
Yeah.
which means the knowledge it builds up is much more meaningful, much more grounded.
Right. So it reflects on time, it explains its intentions, it corrects itself. But what happens when things get complicated? Multiple options, maybe conflicting ideas. How does it handle that internal debate?
That's where dialectical reasoning comes in. It's a method that basically involves the AI formulating an idea, then a counter idea, and then synthesizing them. Like a book, an anti-book, and a sin book developed through internal critique. This builds on work by Tito and others on formal argumentation. It lets the AI really engage in reasoning, almost like having a debate with itself. It criticizes its own interpretations, uses arguments, counter-arguments, justifies its conclusions. It's absolutely key for adapting when things are constantly changing.
Huh. It sounds a bit like how we think, doesn't it? Weighing evidence, changing our minds based on new argument.
It is remarkably similar, yeah. This dialectical approach means it can function well whether it's collaborating with you or even in situations where there's disagreement. It can build this sort of internal argument tree, follow the logic, spot weaknesses in its own thinking, and come up with better solutions. It really mirrors how we learn and reevaluate our beliefs. And crucially, this internal debate forces it to evaluate and prioritize. That ability to choose between different paths is so important, especially, as you said, for ethical choices.
Okay, so bringing all this together, time, intent, self-correction, internal debate. How does it tackle the really tricky stuff? Ethical decision-making. That seems like the ultimate test.
It uses what Barbihan called scenario-based ethical reflection modules. And these modules directly integrate those time layers we talked about, prevention, resilience, experimentation, right into its ethical thinking. So ethical considerations become sensitive to time and context. The system can figure out which ethical rules or codes are most important based on how the situation changes, keeping things aligned even when stuff is in flux. And, really important, the architecture makes sure it's transparent and tells stakeholders how it reached ethically significant decisions.
And it's not just about dodging bad outcomes, is it? It sounds like it's trying to ensure positive ones, too.
Absolutely. There's an explicit ethical evaluative part. This lets the AI predict the likely outcomes of its decisions, not just practical ones, but cognitive and social ones, too. The goal is the flourishing, the well-being of users and stakeholders. Ethics are tied to consequences, right? So this system tries to anticipate them, both good and bad, immediate and long-term. Things like trust, honesty, relationships. It's not just preventing harm, but also actively looking for beneficial results to build trust. And it includes risk assessment, spotting conflicts in values, addressing inconsistencies, adapting when ethical views need to change.
So it won't just, optimize for one single thing, say, minimizing harm, but it'll try to balance different ethical principles, even if they seem to clash.
Precisely. The ethical evaluation uses multiple perspectives. It implements prevention, resilience, and experimentation together. That design specifically stops it from making choices that just maximize one ethical goal while ignoring others. It's constantly analyzing the situation, evaluating, correcting itself if needed. It avoids making wild guesses. And again, that transparency about why it made a choice or suggestion is just critical. For users, for the people evaluating the system, everyone needs to understand the reasoning.
Wow. Okay, that was quite a deep dive. We've really seen how this reflective Sophimatic AI isn't just about being faster. It's about understanding time, thinking about its own thoughts, having internal debates, and making genuinely considered ethical choices. It feels different.
It really is a different kind of architecture. It moves AI much closer to giving more human-like responses because it gets context, intent, and how knowledge changes over time in a much deeper way. It allows it to be, well, a more valuable partner for us, a more reflective one.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Well, as AI gets woven more and more into our lives, understanding systems like this one, systems that really prioritize transparency and ethical thinking, that becomes incredibly important. It's about building trust and making sure these amazing tools actually serve our best interests. It's about aiming for AI that isn't just smart, but maybe even wise.
And it does raise an interesting question, doesn't it? If AI can learn to reflect on its own intentions like this, critique its own reasoning, what might we as humans learn from its process about our own decision making, our own ethical reflections? It sort of holds up an interesting mirror to us, perhaps. Something to think about.